I've given the spotlight to the best twist villains that Disney has to offer, but I haven't given the worst ones their time to shine, so let's remedy that. Big Hero 6 was not very good in my eyes, which is extraordinarily strange for me to say, because it seems like this film was practically made for me to love it. I love superhero movies, I love animation of course, I like the Power Rangers, but I don't like this. And I think the major culprit is this guy. Because since the antagonist of a story often defines the entire story, since they're the one driving the plot, more or less, they can either be the downfall or the height of their given films. Yokai doesn't make any sense, and today I'm going to go through exactly why, according to my own scaling system, and give my thoughts on how it could have been made better. Okay, so this movie takes place in a futuristic city where there's a big science expo. And this kid named Hiro, yeah, it's a good name, it's kind of clever. Well, he brings these tiny little robots that you can control with your mind called microbots, and impresses everybody at the expo with them. His brother Tadashi wants him to be able to use his ability to create robots for the benefit of mankind, which is why he himself created a medical assistant robot named Baymax. Tadashi's mentor Callahan accepts Hiro into the school, and Hiro denies an offer by billionaire Alistair Cray to buy his robots. After the expo, a fire breaks out, and Tadashi runs inside to save Callahan, but the building explodes, destroying the microbots and killing Callahan and Tadashi. Years later, Hiro discovers a supervillain in an old warehouse making millions of copies of his microbots, and then much later in the film, as in much, much later, it is revealed to us that this man is in fact Callahan, and he tells us that his daughter was part of Cray's experiments and that she was teleported to another dimension, never to return. And so Callahan wants to use the microbots to destroy Cray's new office building as revenge. I hate it. Well, where do I even begin with this? Okay, so I guess a good place to begin is with my scaling system for these types of characters. At number 1, is the twist genuinely surprising? Well, yeah, I guess it is, but it's only surprising because it makes zero sense in terms of a progressive narrative that this happened. There's just no way to tell that this guy was going to be the antagonist. He has no reason whatsoever to want to harm the protagonist, and more importantly, this can't be viewed as a genuinely earned surprise because the audience doesn't get a chance to actually guess the twist. We don't find out about the fact that Cray was even doing his teleportation experiment until more than halfway through the movie, by which point Callahan has long been presumed dead, and they've squandered any opportunity to set that up with any connection to him. And likewise, we don't find out about the fact that he even had a daughter until the movie just reveals to us that this person is in fact his daughter. The twist doesn't work because it's not a build-up to a reveal, it's just the reveal that this happened, and it's so blunt that there was no way for us to have guessed or had any clues beforehand. I'm not kidding, they don't give us even one thread of this twist until it just happens. So no, I don't think that this is genuinely surprising in a good way at all. Number 2, are there any hints toward the character's villainy before the big reveal? No. I'm pretty confident in saying, not only are there no hints toward Callahan being evil, there's a lot of evidence that he's not. He's a mentor and a friend to Tadashi, he seems to genuinely care about his students and the advancement of technology. He's never presented as anything but a friendly, helpful guy who wants the best for the people around him. As I said, they don't give us so much as a single thread of information about his past, and so they render it impossible to guess what his motivation is.
Cat, what's the problem?
What's my motivation?
Does it matter?
Oh, well, I guess not, but, do I have any dialogue?
Nope.
So let me give some examples of both good and even bad twist villains who do this, even if they do it poorly. First of all, let me use Charles Muntz as an example. True, we don't know that Charles is alive until halfway through the movie, just like Yokai. And true, we don't know that he'll be an integral part of the story until that point. And truer still, we don't know that he'll be a villain until even later in the story. But you know what? All of those points are well crafted to the point that his motivation and turn to villainy are still perfectly set up in the prior scenes. Sure, we don't know that he's alive, but it's feasible that he survived all this time, and the movie just banks on you forgetting that. And sure, we don't know that he'll be part of the story until halfway through, but it was set up at the very beginning that he would be in the very place the characters end up, so it's perfectly reasonable to expect that he would still be there. It doesn't feel contrived. And finally, we don't know that Charles will end up being the villain, but his motivation had been set up well before we even started the main quest. We know that he wants to take the bird back with him, and it's reasonable to assume that he's lost his mind and morals over all these years in isolation. And we have a setup where the bird follows the protagonist because they gave her chocolate, and so the whole misconception Charles has about them trying to steal the bird away from him makes perfect sense, at least in his villainous mind. So even though the character abruptly appears halfway through the film has already set up everything they needed to. Just imagine if this scene wasn't in the movie. I mean, that's basically what we're dealing with for Yokai. But even Bellwether, who I think is a poor example, even she wasn't this bad. Bellwether had her motivation set up early on in the film, because you see her bossed around and treated cruelly by a predator, and then there's this little sticky note with one of the evil henchmen's names on it later on in the movie in her office, so at least there's something there. With Yokai, there's just nothing. And finally, is the twist necessary for the plot to progress? No, not really. The plot just changes halfway through, so the twist really could have been anything. It's such a strange concept for a writer, I don't understand what to even compare this to. I guess I'll start by giving some examples of how a twist could have made it necessary for the plot to progress. Example number 1, and this is what was almost certainly in the first draft of the script and was just not properly revised. Cray is the villain. Just make him the villain. It makes perfect sense that Cray would be the antagonist, and it's actually kind of bewildering that he wasn't. He had a motivation to steal the microbots, since it was set up very early on in the film that he wanted them for his own research, and he's portrayed as a ruthless, manipulative person who probably would kill a lot of people to get what he wants. Meanwhile, we're expected to believe that Callahan was willing to murder dozens of people and burn down a school just to steal these robots for his revenge plot. Did you not have a backup plan? Like, if you're this motivated to kill Cray, and that's your whole motivation, and you don't care about getting arrested, why not just shoot him at the expo? I don't understand. He was just waiting for some extremely implausible scenario wherein a student made a bunch of tiny robots that can be controlled by your brain before he could finish his revenge plot. But anyway, back to my version of the script, and the one I'm pretty sure they were originally going for. So make it that Cray burned down the school, either to steal the microbots or in a if I can't have it, nobody can mindset, and then have the twist be that Tadashi is Yokai. It makes a lot of sense for this plot that he would be the guy in the mask. He would have the ability, through a lot of easily explained contrivances, to have the microbots, either using Hero's designs to make them or just stealing some from the burning building. The name Yokai, meaning ghost, would make more sense for him, he's presumed dead after all, and the mask and the black coat could be to hide the burns on his face from the fire. His motivation at the end to kill Cray and destroy his office would make more ironic sense considering Cray destroyed his center of research and destroyed his experiments. Now Tadashi could pay him back in kind, and ultimately Tadashi's motivation would have been set up perfectly. They could have leaned in more to the fact that Yokai sometimes seems to use less lethal means of trying to dispose of the heroes, and it would make sense because Tadashi wouldn't want to kill his friends, and ultimately we would have a nice, cohesive story. Sure, you'd have to alter a few things to make it fit properly, but it would have been much better, and much more in line with the film's events. At the very least, it would have been a logical through line for the movie. Ultimately, I think Big Hero 6 had the potential to be a great film, but the bizarre choice to do the most shocking thing rather than the most sensical, I think, was to the movie's detriment. And that's why I think Yokai is unfortunately one of the worst twist villains rather than being among the best. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like the video if you liked it, or dislike the video if you didn't like it. And subscribe for more. That's all for now.